Now let's begin. Austin Cherry watched his daughter Melody trace her finger along the edge of the kitchen table, her 8-year-old mind clearly working through something she didn't want to say out loud. The morning light caught the soft brown curls that fell across her forehead, and he felt that familiar tightening in his chest, the one that came from loving someone so much it physically hurt. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Her voice was small, careful. Austin set down his coffee. "Always, sweetheart. Why don't Grandma and Grandpa like me?" The question landed like a punch. His wife Lori, standing at the stove, went completely still. Austin had spent 15 years as a crisis management consultant before burning out and switching to freelance writing. He'd talked corporations through scandals, coached executives through hostile takeovers, diffused situations that would have destroyed companies. But nothing in that career had prepared him for the devastation in his daughter's eyes. "What makes you think that?" He kept his voice level, though his jaw tightened. Melody shrugged, a gesture far too resigned for someone her age. "They never visit. And when we go there, Grandma always says I'm too loud or too messy. Last time, she said I had unfortunate features, and that's why I should always be polite, since I won't have looks to fall back on." Lori's knuckles whitened on the spatula. Austin's parents, Howard and Brenda Cherry, had perfected the art of cruelty disguised as concern. They lived an hour away in Millbrook Heights, in the same sprawling Tudor house where Austin had grown up. Howard had made his money in commercial real estate, and Brenda had made her identity out of being a real estate mogul's wife. They sat on charity boards, hosted fundraisers, and presented themselves as pillars of the community. They'd hated Lori from the moment Austin brought her home 12 years ago. She was a nurse, not from money, and worse. In Brenda's eyes, she was plain. When Melody was born, Brenda had looked at the infant with undisguised disappointment, as if the baby had personally failed her by not emerging as an Instagram-ready cherub. "Your grandparents," Austin said carefully, "have some problems with how they see the world. That's about them, not about you. You're perfect exactly as you are." Melody nodded, but he could see she didn't believe him. How could she? She was 8. All she knew was that the people who were supposed to love her unconditionally found her fundamentally lacking. The birthday incident had happened 3 weeks ago. Melody's 9th birthday was coming up in September, and Austin's sister Carol had suggested a joint celebration with her daughter Angela's 12th birthday, which fell on the same weekend. Austin should have known better than to agree, but he'd hoped, stupidly, that his parents might make an effort. Carol Lambert had married Rob Lambert, a corporate attorney who'd made partner at 32. They lived in a gated community, drove matching BMWs, and Angela attended a private school that cost more than Austin's first car. Carol had always been competitive with Austin, even as kids, but motherhood had turned that competitive streak into something uglier. Every milestone Angela hit became a weapon to diminish Melody. The party had been at Carol and Rob's house, a gleaming monument to excess with its marble foyer and crystal chandelier. Angela had held court like a tiny tyrant, showing off her new designer clothes while Melody had stood quietly in her Target dress, clutching the homemade card she'd created for her cousin. Howard and Brenda had arrived with a stack of wrapped presents, 5 large boxes, each one gorgeously wrapped in silver and gold paper. Melody's eyes had lit up. For one precious moment, Austin had seen his daughter believe that maybe, just maybe, her grandparents actually cared. Then, later that night, after the party, Howard had pulled Austin aside. "We need to return those gifts," Howard had said flatly. "Get the money back." Austin had stared at his father. "What?" "The gifts for Melody." Brenda went overboard. "We're returning them. The money's better spent elsewhere." Howard's expression was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing a business transaction. "The child doesn't need all that. She wouldn't appreciate it anyway. Those were birthday presents. For your granddaughter. She doesn't deserve nice things," Brenda had interjected, appearing beside her husband like a designer-clad specter. "We spoiled Angela because she's exceptional. She works hard at school. She's talented. She's going places. Melody is, well, we need to be realistic about her prospects. Building character through modest expectations is actually a kindness." Austin had felt something cold settle into his bones. "You're serious?" "Completely. We'll give her something small later. Something appropriate." Brenda had smiled, the same smile she used at her charity luncheons. "You'll thank us when she doesn't grow up entitled." They'd taken the gifts that night. All 5 boxes. Melody had never known they existed, and Austin hadn't told her. He'd absorbed that particular cruelty himself, let it settle into the growing catalog of his parents' calculated meanness. But he'd underestimated their capacity for malice. The call had come from Carol 2 weeks later. Mom and Dad want to do Christmas at their place this year. Big family gathering. We should make an effort to come together, don't you think? Austin had wanted to refuse, but Lori had touched his hand. Maybe it'll be different. It's Christmas. It wasn't different. They'd arrived at the Tudor house on Christmas morning to find it transformed into a winter wonderland. White lights, a 12-foot tree, garland draping every surface. Angela had been dressed like she was attending a photo shoot, all cashmere and silk. Melody had worn her best dress, the blue one with small flowers that Lori had carefully ironed. Under the tree sat mountains of presents. Austin counted at least 20 with Angela's name. For Melody, there were 5 boxes, the same size and shape as the birthday presents, wrapped in the same silver and gold paper. His daughter's face had transformed. Hope, pure and painful to witness, had flooded her features. She'd looked at Austin with such joy that his heart had cracked. "Can I open one now?" Melody had asked, her voice breathless. After breakfast, Brenda had decreed, drawing out the anticipation with surgical precision. They'd eaten. Austin had barely tasted the food, watching his daughter steal glances at the presents, watching her practice the thank you speech she'd clearly been rehearsing in her head. Finally, Brenda had gestured toward the tree. "Go ahead, girls." Angela had torn into her presents with greedy efficiency. A new iPhone, designer clothes, expensive jewelry, a tablet, headphones, perfume. Each gift was met with squeals calculated to showcase her haul. Melody had approached her 5 boxes reverently. She'd carefully peeled back the wrapping paper on the first box, folding it neatly because Lori had taught her not to waste things. Inside was another box. Inside that, another. And another. The boxes were empty. All 5 of them. Just nested layers of boxes, each one empty. Not even packing material. Just nothing. The room had gone silent. Melody had stared at the empty boxes, her small hands trembling. Angela had started laughing, a cruel, delighted sound. "Oh my God, you got nothing." Angela had crowed. "Literally nothing. And I got a phone." She'd waved her new iPhone like a trophy. "I guess Grandma and Grandpa know who the favorite is." Melody hadn't cried. She'd gone very still, her face carefully blank in that way children learned when showing emotion only made things worse. But Austin had seen her expression in that moment before she'd locked it down. Devastation mixed with a terrible understanding, the final death of hope. Carol had smiled behind her wine glass. Rob had checked his phone, pretending not to notice. Howard had shrugged, and Brenda had actually laughed, a light, tinkling sound. "It's just a joke, sweetheart," Brenda had said. "Don't be so sensitive. We wanted to teach you not to be materialistic. Isn't that right, Howard?" Character building, Howard had agreed. Austin had stayed calm. Every instinct screamed at him to rage, to flip the table, to grab Melody, and walk out. But he'd learned something in his years of crisis management. The person who loses control loses the game. Instead, he'd smiled, nodded, helped clean up the wrapping paper. He'd watched his daughter's humiliation with a face made of stone and a mind that was already working. Lori had been shaking when they'd gotten to the car. "Austin, not now," he'd said quietly. Not in front of Melody. That night, after Melody had cried herself to sleep, Lori had confronted him. "We're never seeing them again. Ever." "No," Austin had said. "We're not." "Good." She'd paused. "You're too calm." "Am I?" She'd studied his face, and something in her expression had shifted. "What are you planning?" Austin had thought about his daughter's face. About years of calculated cruelty. About his parents' smug certainty that their money and status made them untouchable. About Angela's mocking laughter and Carol's complicit smile. "I'm going to make one move," he'd said. "Just one. And their lives are going to unravel." Lori had been quiet for a long moment. Then, "Good. Now." 3 weeks later, Austin sat at his laptop in his home office. The coffee had gone cold, but he barely noticed. He'd spent the last weeks learning everything there was to know about his family's secrets. What he'd found was better than he'd imagined. His parents weren't just cruel. They were careless. And their carelessness was going to cost them everything. Austin's investigation had started with a simple question. Where had the money from Melody's returned gifts gone? His parents weren't poor, Howard's real estate company still generated healthy income, and Brenda had her own money from a family trust. So why the petty cruelty of returning a child's birthday presents? The answer, as it turned out, opened a much larger door. He'd started by accessing financial records he technically shouldn't have been able to see. One of the skills he'd developed in crisis management was building a network of people who owed him favors. A forensic accountant named Luke Parker had been one of his go-to resources for corporate investigations. Luke owed Austin for keeping his name out of a messy lawsuit 3 years back. "I need you to look at some accounts," Austin had said over drinks at a quiet bar downtown. Discreetly, Luke had raised an eyebrow. "Whose accounts?" "My parents." "This is personal, then." "Very." Luke had studied him for a moment, then nodded. "What am I looking for?" "Anything unusual. Anything that doesn't add up." It had taken Luke 5 days. When he'd called Austin back, there'd been something in his voice, a mixture of surprise and professional excitement. "Your old man's been very busy," Luke had said. "You want the highlight reel or the full breakdown?" "Start with the highlights." Howard Cherry sits on the board of the Millbrook Heights Community Foundation. Big charity, lots of donors, grants to local organizations. Very respectable. "I know all that. What you might not know is that your mother runs a subsidiary called the Youth Excellence Initiative. It's funded by the main foundation, supposed to provide scholarships and enrichment programs for underprivileged kids." Austin had felt something cold start to form in his chest. "Go on." "The initiative has processed about $2 million in donations over the past 4 years. Want to guess how much actually went to scholarships?" "Tell me." "Maybe 20%. The rest went to administrative costs and program development. In practice, that means your parents have been paying themselves consulting fees. Your mother's been expensing personal shopping trips as donor cultivation, and they've been funneling money to Carol's husband's law firm for unnecessary legal work. That's fraud. It's creative accounting that crosses into fraud. Yeah, but here's where it gets interesting." Luke had paused. The foundation's biggest donor is Salvatore Marshall. Tech entrepreneur, made his fortune in data security. Very wealthy, very private, and very serious about his charitable giving. He's contributed over $800,000 to the Youth Excellence Initiative specifically because his daughter died young and he wanted to help other kids. Austin had closed his eyes. Of course his parents would steal from a grieving father's memorial fund. "Marshall has no idea the money's being misused," Luke had continued. "The reports your parents send him are completely fabricated. Fake scholarship recipients, staged photos, the works. If he found out, what would happen? Best case scenario? Massive lawsuit, criminal investigation, complete destruction of their reputation. Worst case? Marshall's the kind of guy who has resources to make problems disappear, if you know what I mean." Austin had known exactly what he meant. "There's more," Luke had added. "Your sister Carol? She's been running her own side hustle. The initiative supposedly hired her as a youth development consultant at $15,000 a month. For that money, she's produced exactly 3 PowerPoint presentations in 2 years. They're all in on it. Family business," Luke had agreed. "The really beautiful part is that they've gotten sloppy. They're confident nobody's looking, so they've stopped covering their tracks well. Everything's documented. I could build a case that would destroy them in about 3 days if I had to testify." Austin had sat with that information for a long moment. "Then, how much did my parents spend on Angela's Christmas presents?" "According to your mother's expense reports, which she stupidly filed under the initiative, about $7,000. All of it claimed as youth program materials. And my daughter's returned birthday presents? $3,000 in returns, which never went back to the foundation. It went straight into a personal account. They literally stole from a children's charity to pocket $3,000. Austin had felt something settle into place. Not anger, but something colder and more focused. "Luke, I need you to do something for me." "Name it." "I need a complete package. Every transaction, every fabricated report, every expense claim. Everything that proves what they've been doing. Can you build that?" "Already started. Give me a week to make it bulletproof." "One more thing. Can you do this without them ever knowing it was me?" Luke had smiled. "Crisis Management 101, right? Never leave fingerprints." Exactly. That conversation had been 2 weeks ago. Now Austin had the complete file, 200 pages of documented fraud, false reports, misappropriated funds. It was damning. It was thorough. And it was exactly what he needed. But simply exposing them wasn't enough. Austin wanted them to feel what Melody had felt. That moment when you realize the people who were supposed to protect you have betrayed you instead. He wanted them to understand that their cruelty had consequences. He needed them to destroy themselves. Austin opened his encrypted messaging app and typed a message to a number he hadn't used in 3 years. "Guy, I need to talk. Are you still in the information business?" The response came back in under a minute. "Austin Cherry. Thought you'd gone straight. What do you need?" Guy Mercer was what people in certain circles called a reputation specialist. He didn't hack, exactly. He just knew how to make information appear in the right places at the right times. Austin had used him twice during his crisis management days, both times to leak carefully curated information that had forced hostile actors to back down. "I need a campaign," Austin wrote. "Complex, multi-stage, targeted. Can we meet? Tomorrow, same place as last time." Austin closed the laptop and leaned back. The plan was forming, piece by piece. His parents' greed had made them vulnerable. Their arrogance had made them careless. And their cruelty had given him the motivation to do what needed to be done. He thought about Melody, about her small hands opening those empty boxes, about Angela's mocking laughter, about his parents' casual cruelty disguised as character building. They'd wanted to teach his daughter that she didn't deserve nice things. He was going to teach them what they deserved. Lori appeared in the doorway. "You've been in here for hours." "I'm almost done." She walked over, put her hands on his shoulders. "Austin, whatever you're planning. It's legal," he said. "Mostly. And it's deserved. Completely." She was quiet for a moment. "Will it hurt them?" "Yes." "Good." She kissed the top of his head. "Just be careful. I don't want you becoming like them." "I won't," he promised. "This isn't about cruelty. This is about consequences." After she left, Austin opened a new document and began to write. The first email would go out tomorrow, anonymous, targeted, designed to start a very specific chain of events. His parents had spent years building a facade of respectability. He was going to use that facade to crush them, and they would never see it coming. Guy Mercer looked exactly the same as he had 3 years ago. Average height, average build, average features. The kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting him, which was precisely why he was so good at what he did. They met at a coffee shop in a strip mall 30 miles from Millbrook Heights. Guy was already there when Austin arrived, sitting in a back corner with his laptop and a green tea. "You look good," Guy said as Austin slid into the booth. "Fatherhood agrees with you. Cut the small talk. Are you still doing this kind of work?" "Depends on the work." Guy's expression was neutral. "I've gotten more selective. Less corporate espionage. More. Let's call it social engineering for good causes." Austin pulled out a USB drive and placed it on the table. "Everything's on here. Financial records, fabricated reports, evidence of charity fraud. My parents and sister have been stealing from a children's fund for years. The biggest donor is Salvatore Marshall." Guy's eyes widened slightly. "The Salvatore Marshall? Tech billionaire Marshall." "The same. He's been donating to a memorial fund in his daughter's name. My parents have been using it as a personal piggy bank." "Jesus." Guy picked up the USB drive, turning it over in his fingers. "You want me to leak this?" "Not yet. That's the endgame. First, I need you to do something more subtle." Guy smiled. "Now you're speaking my language. What's the play?" Austin leaned forward. "My parents' entire identity is built on being respectable. They sit on boards, host fundraisers, present themselves as pillars of the community. That respectability is armor. I need you to start cracking that armor without them realizing what's happening. Death by 1,000 cuts." "Exactly. I want rumors. Small ones at first. Nothing actionable, just whispers. Questions about where the foundation's money is really going. Concerns about effectiveness. Anonymous tips to the local newspaper about how few kids actually benefit from the Youth Excellence Initiative compared to how much money it takes in." Guy was nodding, already thinking. "Plant the seeds. Let people start asking questions. By the time the real evidence comes out, there's already a narrative in place. Right? But there's a second part." Austin pulled out his phone and showed Guy a photo of Carol and Rob Lambert at a charity gala. "My sister and her husband. They're complicit in the fraud, but they think they're untouchable. Rob's a partner at Brennan and Associates. Carol's identity is wrapped up in being the successful daughter, the perfect mother, the rising star in Millbrook Heights society. You want to separate them from your parents before everything collapses." Austin smiled. I want them to turn on each other. Rob's a lawyer. He knows fraud when he sees it. Right now, he's happy to benefit from it. But if he thinks he might get caught, he'll save himself. I need you to make him paranoid. Anonymous tips to the State Bar Association? Too obvious. No, I want this to feel organic. Start with the law firm. Plant stories about how the foundation's legal fees seem excessive. Get other board members asking questions about why Brennan and Associates gets so much work. Make Rob feel exposed at his firm. Once he's scared, he'll distance himself from my parents to protect his partnership. Guy was typing notes. And once Rob distances himself, Carol will panic. Carol's entire self-worth comes from status. If Rob's worried, she'll do anything to protect their position, including throwing my parents under the bus if she has to. Divide and conquer. Guy looked up from his laptop. You've really thought this through. I've had time. What about the daughter? Angela, right? The one who mocked your kid. Austin's expression hardened. She's 12. She's cruel, but she's learned it from the adults around her. I'm not targeting a child. Fair enough. Though kids can be vicious. Guy paused. What's the timeline? 3 months. I want this to build slowly. By the time Marshall finds out what they've done, there should already be a chorus of voices questioning the foundation. When the evidence comes out, it should feel inevitable, not surprising. And you want to stay completely out of it. Completely invisible. As far as anyone knows, I'm just the estranged son who stopped coming to family events. If this traces back to me, it loses power. Guy studied him for a long moment. This is personal. Very. They hurt your daughter. Austin didn't answer. He didn't need to. Okay, Guy said finally. I'll do it. But I need you to understand something. Once this starts, it takes on a life of its own. You're setting a boulder rolling downhill. You can't control exactly where it ends up. I know. People might get hurt who you don't intend to hurt. As long as my parents, Carol, and Rob get what's coming to them, I can live with collateral damage. Guy closed his laptop. Then we're in business. I'll need 2 weeks to set up the infrastructure. Fake accounts, anonymous email addresses, burner phones. Then the campaign starts. You'll see the first moves in about 3 weeks. Perfect. They shook hands. As Austin stood to leave, Guy called after him. Cherry. Yeah. Whatever they did to your kid, I hope this gives you some peace. Austin thought about Melody's face on Christmas morning. It will. He drove home through light rain, his mind already moving to the next phase. Guy would handle the reputation campaign, but Austin had his own role to play. He needed to make sure that when everything collapsed, there was evidence, irrefutable, documentable evidence, of his parents' reaction. He needed them on record being exactly who they were. That meant one more family dinner. His phone rang as he pulled into his driveway. Carol's name flashed on the screen. He almost didn't answer, then thought better of it. Carol. Austin, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. I've been busy. What do you want? Mom and Dad want to apologize. About Christmas. They realized the joke went too far. Austin felt a spike of cold anger. Joke. They were still calling it a joke. That's big of them, he said flatly. They want to make it right. They're planning a do-over, a New Year's dinner. Big family gathering. They want to give Melody real presents this time. Make it up to her. Why would I subject my daughter to that again? Because they're family, Austin. Because holding grudges doesn't help anyone. Carol's voice took on a wheedling tone. Besides, Angela feels bad about teasing Melody. She wants to apologize too. Austin doubted that very much. Angela had probably been coached to apologize as part of damage control. Brenda couldn't stand the idea that anyone might think poorly of their family. But a New Year's dinner, that could be useful. I'll think about it, Austin said. Really? Carol sounded surprised. I thought you'd refuse outright. Melody deserves to see her grandparents make an effort. If they're serious about apologizing, I should give them a chance to do it. Oh, Austin, that's wonderful. I'll tell Mom. She'll be so relieved. You know how she worries about family unity. Family unity. Right. After they hung up, Austin sat in his car, thinking. A New Year's dinner would put everyone together. If he recorded it, carefully, legally, he could document their real attitudes. Not the public face they showed the world, but the private cruelty they reserved for family. He pulled out his phone and sent a text to Luke Parker. Need recording equipment. Legal for single-party consent in this state. Can you source it? The reply came quickly. Consider it done. I'll have it to you by Friday. Austin smiled. The pieces were falling into place. He walked into his house to find Lori helping Melody with homework at the kitchen table. His daughter looked up, and for a moment, he saw such trust in her eyes that it nearly broke him. "Hey, Dad. We're doing fractions. How's it going?" "Hard. But Mom's helping." He ruffled her hair gently. "You're smart. You'll figure it out." After Melody went to bed, he told Lori about Carol's call. "They want another chance to hurt her," Lori said immediately. "I know, but I'm going to use it." "How?" "I'm going to record everything. Every cruel comment, every dismissive remark. When this all comes out, I want people to see exactly who they are, not just what they've done." Lori was quiet, considering. And if they're actually genuine? If they really do apologize? Austin met her eyes. "They won't be. People like my parents don't change. They'll be charming and apologetic in public, but the moment they think no one important is listening, the mask will slip. It always does." "You sound very sure." "I've known them my whole life, Lori. Trust me on this." She nodded slowly. "Okay, but I'm coming with you. And if they say one wrong word to Melody, we leave. I don't care about your plan." "Deal." That night, Austin lay awake, thinking about the machinery he'd set in motion. Guy would start the Whisper campaign within weeks. The anonymous tips would begin flowing to local journalists, board members, concerned citizens. Questions would be asked. Audits might be requested. And in the middle of it all, his parents would sit at their New Year's dinner table, completely unaware that their world was already crumbling. He thought about crisis management, about all the times he'd advised clients to control the narrative before it controlled them. His parents had never learned that lesson. They thought their money and connections made them immune to consequences. They were about to learn otherwise. The first crack appeared 3 weeks later, exactly as planned. Austin saw it mentioned in the Millbrook Heights Observer's weekly roundup, a small item, barely 2 paragraphs, buried in the community news section. Questions raised about foundation effectiveness. Multiple sources close to the Millbrook Heights Community Foundation have expressed concern about the Youth Excellence Initiative's impact relative to its funding. While the program has received substantial donations, including significant contributions from philanthropist Salvatore Marshall, community members report seeing little evidence of scholarship recipients or program outcomes. Foundation Director Howard Cherry could not be reached for comment. Austin read it 3 times, a smile tugging at his mouth. Guy had planted it perfectly, not accusatory enough to trigger a lawsuit, but pointed enough to start people asking questions. He showed it to Lori that evening. "It's starting," she said. "Just the opening move." 2 days later, Carol called. She sounded stressed. "Have you seen the Observer article?" "Which one?" "The one about the foundation." "People are talking, Austin. Mom's freaking out." "Why would she freak out? If the program's doing good work, there's nothing to worry about." "That's what I said. But you know how she gets when people question her." Carol lowered her voice. "Between you and me, I think the program could be better organized. Mom's not exactly detail-oriented with the paperwork." Austin filed that away. Carol was already hedging, already starting to distance herself. "I'm sure it'll blow over," he said mildly. "I hope so. The New Year's dinner is in 2 weeks. Mom wants everything to be perfect. She's planning this whole elaborate apology to Melody, multiple gifts, the works. That's nice of her. She wants to prove she's a good grandmother. You know how she is about appearances." "Oh, Austin knew." "We'll be there," he said. After the call, he met with Luke Parker at a neutral location, a park bench near a running trail where they could talk without being overheard. "The recording equipment," Luke said, handing over a small package. "Top of the line. Looks like a pen. Records for 8 hours. Crystal clear audio. Completely legal in a single-party consent state, as long as you're part of the conversation." "Perfect. I saw the Observer article." "That you're doing?" "Indirectly." "Nice touch. I've also been hearing whispers at the foundation board meetings. Someone's been asking pointed questions about program metrics and outcomes." "Howard's getting defensive." "Let him get defensive. Defensive people make mistakes." Luke grinned. "You're enjoying this." "My daughter cried herself to sleep on Christmas." "Yeah, I'm enjoying watching them squirm." "Fair enough. What's next?" "I need you to do something for me. I need you to reach out to Rob Lambert. Quietly, through a third party. Let him know that the State Bar Association is reviewing complaints about lawyers who do work for nonprofits without proper competitive bidding. You want to scare him. I want him to realize he's exposed. Rob's smart enough to know that if the foundation goes down, his firm's relationship with it becomes toxic. Once he's worried about his partnership, he'll start protecting himself. And once he protects himself, Carol will panic. And once Carol panics, she'll turn on my parents to save her own reputation. Luke nodded slowly. You're orchestrating a family implosion. They did it to themselves. I'm just accelerating the timeline. What about Salvatore Marshall? When does he find out? Not yet. Marshall's the nuclear option. When he finds out his daughter's memorial fund was being embezzled, he'll bring the full weight of his resources down on them. But I need the foundation already under scrutiny when that happens. Otherwise, my parents might find a way to spin it, make excuses, settle quietly. You want maximum damage. Austin thought about Melody's face. I want complete destruction. That night, he tested the recording pen, making sure it picked up voices clearly at different distances and volumes. It worked perfectly. He practiced keeping it visible but unremarkable, clipped to his shirt pocket, just another pen. Lori watched him prepare. You're really going through with this? Yes. They're still your parents. They stopped being my parents when they humiliated my daughter for entertainment. She didn't argue with that. The day before the New Year's dinner, Austin received a text from an unknown number. Phase 2 initiated. Board member requesting formal audit. Your father is scrambling. Gee. Austin smiled. Right on schedule. He typed back. Perfect. Keep the pressure steady. The reply came immediately. Already done. Anonymous tip sent to Marshall's office suggesting he verify his donation was used as intended. His people will start asking questions within a week. Austin felt a surge of satisfaction. Everything was converging. The New Year's dinner would be the perfect capstone. A recording of his parents' true nature, captured just as their world started to collapse around them. He spent New Year's Eve helping Melody pick out an outfit for the dinner. She was quiet, hesitant. Do I have to go, Dad? You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But you want me to go. Austin knelt down to her level. I want you to see your grandparents apologize to you. I want you to hear them say they were wrong. You deserve that. What if they're mean again? Then we leave immediately, and you never have to see them again. I promise. Melody considered this. Okay, but can I bring Mr. Whiskers? She held up her favorite stuffed cat, a battered gray tabby that had been her comfort object since she was 3. Absolutely. That night, after Melody was asleep, Austin and Lori sat together on the couch. Last chance to back out, she said softly. I'm not backing out. You're about to destroy your family. They destroyed themselves. I'm just making sure everyone sees it. Lori took his hand. Promise me something. What? Promise me this is about justice, not revenge. Austin was quiet for a long moment. What's the difference? Justice is about making things right. Revenge is about making yourself feel better. He thought about that. About Melody's tears, about years of watching his parents demean and diminish everyone around them. About the casual cruelty they called character building. It's both, he said finally. It's about making sure they face consequences for what they've done. And yes, there's satisfaction in that. But if it were just about making me feel better, I'd have done something quicker and messier. This is about dismantling them piece by piece so thoroughly that they can never hurt anyone else. Lori studied his face in the dim light. Okay, then let's finish it. The next morning, Austin dressed carefully, business casual, nothing too formal. He clipped the recording pin to his shirt pocket and tested it one more time. Clear audio, perfect. They drove to Millbrook Heights through cold January rain. Melody sat in the back seat, clutching Mr. Whiskers, unusually quiet. Austin caught her eye in the rearview mirror. You okay, sweetheart? Will Angela be there? Probably. I don't want her to be mean again. If she is, we'll leave. Remember? You have all the power here. Melody nodded, but she looked unconvinced. The Tudor house loomed ahead, its windows glowing warm against the gray afternoon. Carol's BMW was already in the driveway. Austin felt his pulse quicken, not from nerves, but from anticipation. He activated the recording pen. Time to document exactly who his parents really were. Brenda Cherry opened the door wearing an outfit that probably cost more than Austin's monthly mortgage. Cashmere sweater, designer slacks, enough jewelry to stock a small boutique. Her smile was practiced, perfect, and completely false. Austin, Lori, and sweet Melody. She leaned down, and Melody instinctively stepped back. Come in, come in. We're so glad you could make it. The house smelled like expensive candles and something roasting in the oven. Howard appeared from the living room, drink in hand, his silver hair perfectly styled. He'd always looked like what he was, a man who'd made money and wanted everyone to know it. Son. Howard offered a handshake instead of a hug. Austin took it, keeping his expression neutral. Carol emerged from the kitchen, Angela trailing behind her. His sister looked tense, and Austin wondered if Rob had already received Luke's carefully planted warning about the Bar Association review. You made it. Carol's enthusiasm sounded forced. Angela, say hello to your cousin. Angela looked at Melody with barely concealed disdain. Hi. Melody clutched Mr. Whiskers tighter. Hi. You brought your baby toy? Angela smirked. I thought only little kids carried stuffed animals. Austin felt Lori tense beside him. He put a gentle hand on Melody's shoulder. Mr. Whiskers is special, Melody said quietly. Special for babies, maybe. Angela. Carol's tone was sharp. Be nice. Angela rolled her eyes, but didn't say anything else. They moved into the living room. The Christmas decorations were still up, the tree still massive and obscenely decorated. Austin noted the recording pen was working, capturing every word. Drinks. Howard offered. Wine? Cocktail. Water's fine, Austin said. Of course it is, Howard muttered, but he went to get it. Brenda gestured everyone to sit. She'd arranged the seating deliberately, Melody next to her on the couch, Austin and Lori across from them, controlling the optics. So, Brenda began, her voice saccharine. We wanted to have this dinner because we owe sweet Melody an apology. Melody looked up, surprise and hope warring on her face. The Christmas joke went too far, Brenda continued. We thought it would be funny, a little lesson about not being materialistic, but we see now that it was hurtful. You gave me empty boxes, Melody said softly. Yes, well. Brenda's smile tightened. We wanted to teach you a lesson, but perhaps the method was not ideal. You humiliated her in front of the whole family, Lori said, her voice controlled but hard. Now, Lori, let's not be dramatic. Brenda waved her hand dismissively. It was just family, and children are resilient. Melody's fine, aren't you, dear? Melody didn't answer. Howard returned with drinks. The point is, we're sorry it upset you. We're going to make it right. How? Austin asked. Well, we have gifts for Melody. Real ones this time. Brenda gestured to several wrapped boxes under the tree. And we wanted to explain something to you, Austin, about the original birthday presents. Here it comes, Austin thought. We had to return those gifts, Howard said, settling into his chair. There were financial considerations you weren't aware of. Financial considerations, Austin repeated flatly. The foundation has been under some scrutiny lately. Unfair scrutiny, mind you, but scrutiny nonetheless. We needed to be very careful about our spending. Austin felt a cold satisfaction. They were going to justify it. So you stole from a 9-year-old to save money? Lori's voice was ice. We didn't steal anything, Brenda snapped, her mask slipping slightly. The money went back into the foundation, into programs that help multiple children, not just one spoiled, she caught herself. Not just one child. You were going to say spoiled, Austin noted. About my daughter. I was not. You were. The recording will show it. There was a beat of silence. Howard's eyes narrowed. Recording? Austin touched the pen in his pocket. Washington is a single-party consent state. I've been recording since we walked in. Carol went pale. Austin, you can't. I can. And I am. Because I want documentation of who you people really are when you think no one important is listening. This is outrageous, Howard sputtered. You come into our home. Your home where you humiliated my daughter. Where you stole her birthday presents and gave her empty boxes for Christmas. Where you let Angela mock her. Yes, Dad. I came into that home, and I'm recording every word. Brenda's face had gone hard. This is why Melody has problems, you know. You coddle her. You let her be weak and sensitive instead of toughening her up. She's 8 years old, and already a disappointment. The words came out sharp, unfiltered, just like you were at her age. Soft. Emotional. We tried to fix it with you, but you never learned. Now you're raising her to be the same way. There it was. The truth, captured perfectly. Lori stood up. We're leaving. Sit down, Howard commanded. We're not finished. Oh, we're finished, Austin said, standing as well. We're very finished. But before we go, I want to give you some information. What information? Carol's voice was shrill. The Millbrook Heights Community Foundation is being audited. A formal audit, requested by board members who have concerns about the Youth Excellence Initiative's effectiveness. Howard's face went red. Who told you that? I have friends. They tell me things. They also tell me that Salvatore Marshall's office has started asking questions about how his donations are being used. Brenda and Howard exchanged looks. Carol had gone absolutely white. You did this, Howard said, his voice low and dangerous. You started this audit. I didn't start anything. I just made sure the right people started asking the right questions. Austin smiled. Questions like, where did the money go? Why are there so few actual scholarship recipients? Why does Brennan and Associates get paid $15,000 a month for minimal work? Why does Brenda expense shopping trips to Nordstrom as donor cultivation? You're insane, Brenda hissed. I'm thorough. There's a difference. Rob Lambert appeared from the hallway, where he'd apparently been listening. Austin, if you have accusations to make. Not accusations. Facts. Documented facts. 200 pages of financial records showing systematic fraud. Misappropriation of charitable funds. Fabricated reports. The works. You're bluffing, Howard said. Am I? Then I guess you have nothing to worry about when Marshall's forensic accountants start digging. Or when the IRS gets an anonymous tip. Or when the local news does a follow-up on that Observer article. Carol grabbed Austin's arm. You can't do this. You'll destroy the family. Austin looked at her hand on his arm, then at her face. You did this. All of you. You stole from a children's charity. You humiliated a little girl for fun. You think money and status make you untouchable. I'm just proving you wrong. He gently removed Carol's hand. Come on, Lori. Melody. We're done here. As they walked toward the door, Brenda's voice rang out, shaking with rage. You ungrateful little shit. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Austin turned back. Everything you've done for me? You mean the constant criticism? The emotional manipulation? The message that I was never good enough? Yeah, thanks for all that. We made you strong, Howard said. We made you successful. No, I became successful despite you, not because of you. And now you're going to learn what consequences feel like. Angela, who'd been silent through all of this, suddenly spoke up. I'm glad Melody got empty boxes. She deserves it for being such a weirdo. Melody, standing beside Austin, finally spoke. Her voice was small, but clear. I'm not a weirdo. You're just mean. Angela laughed. At least I'm not poor and ugly. Austin felt Lori grip his arm, holding him back from saying what he wanted to say to a 12-year-old. Instead, he looked at Carol. That's your daughter. That's what you're raising. Carol opened her mouth, closed it, then said weakly, she's just repeating what she hears. Yes, Austin agreed. She is. And now it's all recorded. They left. Austin carried the recording pen carefully, making sure it stayed active until they were in the car. Then he turned it off, let out a long breath, and looked at Melody in the rearview mirror. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. What you said to Angela, that took courage. Melody's eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. Are we never going back? Never, Lori promised. Good. As they drove away, Austin's phone began buzzing. Text after text from Carol, from his parents, alternating between rage and panic and attempts at reconciliation. He ignored them all. He had what he needed. The recording would prove exactly who they were. When combined with the financial evidence and the coming audit, it would paint a complete picture, not just of fraud, but of the kind of people who would commit that fraud. The kind of people who gave a child empty boxes for Christmas. The audit results came back 6 weeks later. Austin knew before the official announcement because Luke called him, his voice tight with professional excitement. It's even worse than we thought. Howard and Brenda embezzled over $1 million. They've been doing it for years. The foundation is considering criminal charges. And Marshall got the preliminary findings yesterday. His lawyers are already drafting a lawsuit. But that's not the best part. What's the best part? Rob Lambert went to the State Bar Association himself. Voluntary disclosure. He's claiming he had no knowledge of the fraud and was misled about the nature of the legal work. He's throwing Howard and Brenda completely under the bus to save his license. Austin smiled. And Carol's having a meltdown, according to my sources. She's trying to claim she was just a consultant, had no real involvement, was manipulated by her parents. She's publicly distancing herself from them as fast as possible. Good. There's more. The local news is running a full investigation. They got their hands on some of the financial records, anonymously provided, of course, and they're doing a primetime special. Charity fraud in Millbrook Heights. How one family betrayed a community's trust. When does it air? Tomorrow night. Austin felt a wave of satisfaction. It was all coming together, faster than he'd hoped. That evening, he sat down with Lori and showed her the audit summary that Luke had sent him. She read it in silence, her expression darkening. They really did steal from children, she said finally. From Marshall's memorial fund for his daughter. That's beyond cruel. It's who they are. What happens now? Now they face the consequences. Criminal charges, civil lawsuit, complete public disgrace. Everything they built, their reputation, their status, their place in the community, it's gone. And you feel? Austin considered the question. Satisfied. Not happy exactly, but satisfied that justice is being served. Lori touched his face gently. Just make sure it doesn't consume you. It won't. This was never about destroying them for its own sake. It was about making sure Melody knew that what they did was wrong, that she didn't deserve it, and that actions have consequences. The next night, they watched the news special together. It was damning. The reporter had done excellent work, laying out the financial fraud in clear, accessible terms. There were interviews with people who'd tried to apply for scholarships and been turned away despite the program having plenty of money. There was footage of Howard and Brenda at charity galas, dripping in designer clothes while claiming to care about underprivileged children. And there was the recording. Austin had provided selected excerpts. Not the whole thing, but enough. Brenda calling Melody a disappointment. Howard dismissing the Christmas humiliation as just family. Angela's cruel comments. The casual cruelty, the contempt, the absolute lack of empathy. The reporter's conclusion was scathing. This is a family that claimed to help children while actively harming them, both through fraud and through personal cruelty. The question now is whether they'll face criminal charges for their actions. Austin's phone exploded with calls and texts. Friends, former colleagues, people he hadn't talked to in years. Everyone wanted to know about his parents, about the scandal. He ignored most of them. But when Salvatore Marshall's office called, he answered. Mr. Cherry, this is Joel Knight, legal counsel for Mr. Marshall. Mr. Marshall would like to speak with you, if you're amenable. Put him on. There was a pause, then a new voice, deep, controlled, carrying the weight of someone used to being taken very seriously. Mr. Cherry, I understand your parents misappropriated funds from my daughter's memorial foundation. They did. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for their crimes. Marshall's voice was hard. I'm calling because I want to understand what happened. My team has reviewed the audit, but I'd like to hear it from you directly. Austin took a breath. My parents have been stealing from the Youth Excellence Initiative for years. They fabricated reports to make it look like the money was going to scholarships when it was really funding their lifestyle. When I discovered it, I made sure the right people started asking questions. Why did you discover it? What made you look? Austin thought about Melody's face. They did something cruel to my daughter. When I started digging into why they'd done it, I found the fraud. There was a long pause. Your daughter? How old? 8. Almost 9. My daughter was 7 when she died. Cancer. I started the memorial fund because I wanted to help other children, to give them opportunities she never got to have. Marshall's voice cracked slightly. To learn that the money I gave in her name was stolen, that it went to designer clothes and luxury vacations instead of helping children. I'm sorry, Austin said again. Your parents will pay for this. I'm filing a civil suit for the full amount plus damages. I'm also pushing the DA to pursue criminal charges. They'll go to prison if I have anything to say about it. Good. I understand you have recordings of them discussing the fraud. Not discussing the fraud directly, but discussing their attitudes toward charity, toward children, toward accountability. It shows character. I'd like to hear them. For my lawsuit. Austin made a decision. I'll send them to your counsel. Everything I have. Thank you. Marshall paused. Mr. Cherry, I want you to know, what you did, exposing this fraud, that took courage. A lot of people would have looked the other way, especially when it's family. They hurt my daughter. After that, they stopped being family. I understand that completely. After the call ended, Austin sat in silence. Lori came up behind him, put her hands on his shoulders. How do you feel? Like it's almost over. Almost. There's one more thing I need to do. The criminal charges came 3 weeks later. Howard and Brenda Cherry were indicted on multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and filing false reports. Rob Lambert, having cooperated with investigators, was not charged. Carol was named as a person of interest but avoided indictment by claiming ignorance and returning all the consulting fees she'd received. The civil suit from Marshall was even more devastating. He was suing for $10 million, the embezzled funds plus punitive damages. His lawyers were the best money could buy, and they were out for blood. The Millbrook Heights community turned on the Cherries with vicious speed. Board memberships were revoked. Charity galas they'd hosted were canceled. Friends stopped calling. Their Tudor house went up for sale to pay legal fees. Austin watched it all from a distance, methodical and calm. But there was one more piece of the puzzle. He arranged a meeting with Carol at a neutral coffee shop. She looked terrible, exhausted, older, her expensive clothes rumpled. She'd lost weight, and not in a healthy way. Austin. Her voice was hoarse. Thank you for meeting me. I wasn't sure I would. I know you hate me right now. I don't hate you, Carol. I just see you clearly for the first time. She flinched. I'm sorry. For everything. For Christmas, for the birthday presents, for not stopping Angela. Are you sorry it happened? Or sorry you got caught? Carol was silent. That's what I thought. Austin leaned back. Here's why I wanted to meet. I want you to understand something. I didn't do this out of nowhere. I didn't wake up one day and decide to destroy our family. You all did this to yourselves. I know. Do you? Because even now, you're trying to save your own skin. You threw mom and dad under the bus to protect yourself. You're claiming you didn't know about the fraud, that you were just a pawn. I didn't know the extent of it. But you knew something was wrong. You knew the initiative didn't help that many kids. You knew you were getting paid for doing almost nothing. You just didn't care because the money was good and it made you feel important. Carol's eyes filled with tears. What do you want from me, Austin? You want me to go to prison too? No. I want you to admit the truth. Not to me. I already know it. Admit it to yourself. You chose status and money over integrity. You chose to be complicit in hurting children because it benefited you. And when it all came crashing down, you chose to save yourself instead of taking responsibility. I have a daughter to think about. So do I. That's the difference between us, Carol. When I had to choose between protecting my daughter and protecting my parents, I chose my daughter. You chose yourself. She was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. Austin felt no satisfaction in it. This wasn't about making her cry. It was about making her see. Angela's being bullied at school, Carol said through her tears. Because of the scandal. The other kids are calling her family criminals and thieves. She came home yesterday with bruises. Someone pushed her down. Austin thought about Melody, about empty boxes and mocking laughter. He thought about how easy it would be to say Angela deserved it. But Angela was 12. She'd learned cruelty from the adults around her. Get her out of that school, Austin said. Transfer her somewhere no one knows your name. Start over. And while you're at it, teach her how to be a better person than you were. How? Start by being honest with her. Tell her what you did. Tell her what our parents did. Tell her that money and status aren't worth betraying your values for. Give her a chance to be better than all of us. Carol wiped her eyes. Why are you telling me this? Why do you care what happens to Angela? Because I don't want Melody to grow up thinking revenge is the only answer to cruelty. I want her to see that there's a difference between justice and vindictiveness. I destroyed our parents because they deserved it. But you and Angela, you can still change. You can still be better. He stood to leave. Austin, Carol called after him. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? He considered the question. I don't know. Maybe. But I don't think we'll ever be close again. Too much has happened. I understand. As he walked away, Austin felt something shift. The anger that had driven him for months was finally starting to ease. Not disappearing entirely, but transforming into something else. Something calmer. Lori was waiting in the car. How did it go? Better than expected. She's broken, but maybe that's what she needed. And you? I'm done. With all of it. The investigation is in the hands of professionals now. Marshall's lawyers will make sure mom and dad pay. Carol will have to live with her choices. It's not my problem anymore. They drove home in comfortable silence. When they arrived, Melody was in the front yard, playing with Mr. Whiskers and laughing. The sound was pure and unburdened. Austin watched his daughter, and something in his chest unclenched. She's okay, Lori said softly. Despite everything, she's okay. Yeah, she is. That night, after Melody was asleep, Austin deleted all his files on his parents. The recordings, the financial documents, the evidence, all of it. He'd kept copies in a secure location for legal purposes, But he didn't need to carry it with him anymore. It was done. They'd face their consequences. Melody was safe. That was enough. The trial of Howard and Brenda Cherry became a sensation in Millbrook Heights and beyond. Marshall's lawsuit had already bankrupted them. They'd lost the Tudor house, their cars, their assets. Howard's real estate company had collapsed. Brenda's social standing was obliterated. The criminal trial was the final nail in the coffin. Austin attended part of it, sitting in the back of the courtroom with Lori. He watched his parents sit at the defense table, looking smaller somehow, diminished. Brenda's designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple gray suit. Howard's silver hair had gone completely white from stress. The prosecutor laid out the case methodically. Financial records, fabricated reports, testimony from would-be scholarship recipients who'd been turned away. The recordings Austin had provided, carefully edited to show character without violating any privacy laws, played for the jury. Melody's voice, small and brave. "I'm not a weirdo. You're just mean." Brenda's response, cold and dismissive. "Already a disappointment. Just like you were at her age." The jury's expressions hardened. Salvatore Marshall testified about his daughter, about why he'd created the memorial fund, about his horror at discovering the money had been stolen. His testimony was powerful, emotional, devastating. The defense tried to paint Howard and Brenda as well-meaning people who'd made accounting mistakes. It didn't work. The evidence was too overwhelming. The verdict came back after 3 days of deliberation, guilty on all counts. Sentencing was set for 2 months later. Austin didn't attend the sentencing hearing. He read about it in the news instead. Howard received 8 years in federal prison. Brenda received 6. They would be in their 70s when they got out, their reputations destroyed, their fortune gone. The judge's comments, reported in the newspaper, were scathing. This was not a crime of necessity or desperation. This was greed, pure and simple. You stole from a fund meant to honor a dead child and help living children. You showed no remorse, only entitlement. This sentence reflects the severity of your betrayal of public trust. Austin read the article twice, then folded the paper and set it aside. It was over. "How do you feel?" Lori asked that night. Austin thought about it. "Satisfied. Not happy. I don't think I'll ever be happy about what happened to our family. But satisfied that justice was served." "Do you have any regrets?" "Only that it had to happen at all. That they were the kind of people who would do this. But no, I don't regret exposing them." Melody came downstairs, rubbing her eyes. "Dad, I had a bad dream." Austin pulled her into his lap. "Want to talk about it?" "I dreamed about Grandma and Grandpa. They were being mean again." "Well, you know what? You don't have to worry about that anymore. They can't be mean to you ever again. Because they're in jail?" She knew the basics, that her grandparents had done bad things and were being punished for it. Austin and Lori had explained it in age-appropriate terms. Because they're in jail, yes. But also because even if they weren't, we wouldn't let them near you. Your mom and I will always protect you. "I know." Melody leaned against his chest. "Dad, did you make them go to jail?" "I made sure people knew the truth about what they did. The jail part was their own fault." She was quiet for a moment. "Good. They were mean." "Yes, they were. But you're not mean. Even though you stopped them." Austin kissed the top of her head. "That's the difference, sweetheart. I stopped them without being cruel. That's how you stand up to bullies, with truth and justice, not by becoming like them." "Okay." She yawned. "Can I sleep in your bed tonight?" "Of course." As they settled into bed, Melody between Austin and Lori, Mr. Whiskers clutched in her arms. Austin thought about the journey of the past 6 months. From that terrible Christmas morning to this moment of peace. His parents had tried to teach Melody that she didn't deserve nice things, that she was somehow less than others. Instead, they'd taught her something more valuable, that cruelty has consequences, that justice exists, and that her father would move mountains to protect her. 3 months later, Austin received a letter. It had been forwarded through several addresses before reaching him, and the handwriting on the envelope was shaky. It was from Brenda. He almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity won out. "Austin, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know you hate me, and I understand why. But I need you to know something. I'm sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because I'm in prison. I'm sorry because I finally understand what I did. There's a woman here named Paula. She's in for embezzlement too. Stole from her employer to pay for her son's cancer treatment. She showed me a picture of him. He's alive now, 23, thriving. And all I could think was, I stole from a memorial fund for a child who died. I stole money that was meant to help children like Paula's son. I thought about Melody, about what I said to her, about the empty boxes, about every cruel thing I did to that little girl, my granddaughter, who never did anything except exist. I don't have an excuse. Your father and I, we got so caught up in status and money and appearances that we forgot to be human. We forgot that none of that matters if you're a terrible person. I know you won't forgive me. I know Melody won't. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know that I finally see what I was. What I did. And I'm sorry. I hope Melody is happy. I hope she never becomes like me. Brenda. Austin read the letter 3 times. It was impossible to know if the remorse was genuine or just a product of consequence. Prison had a way of making people reassess their choices. He showed it to Lori. What are you going to do? She asked. Nothing. It doesn't change anything. Whether she's genuinely sorry or not, the damage is done. Are you going to respond? No. But I won't throw it away either. He put the letter in a folder with all the other documents from the case, a record of what had happened, what his parents had done, and where it had led. Someday, when Melody was older, she might want to know the full story. The letter would be part of that story, a testament to how people can destroy themselves through their own choices. But for now, it was just a letter from a woman in prison, too late with her apology. 2 years passed. Life moved forward in the way it does after a crisis, slowly at first, then with gathering momentum. Austin's writing career flourished. Lori got promoted to charge nurse. Melody thrived in school, her confidence growing with each passing month. They never spoke about Howard or Brenda. The topic simply disappeared from their lives, like a wound that had healed and left only the faintest scar. Carol reached out occasionally, tentative emails, awkward phone calls. She'd moved with Rob and Angela to a different state, started fresh. Angela was in therapy, apparently doing better. Carol was working at a nonprofit, actually doing good work for once. Austin responded to the emails politely but distantly. The wounds were too deep for real reconciliation, but he didn't want to carry anger forever. One evening, Austin sat with Melody helping her with homework. She was working on a school project about courage. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. What's the most courageous thing you ever did? Austin thought about it. About the investigation, the recordings, the systematic dismantling of his parents' lives. About choosing truth over family loyalty, justice over comfort. I stood up for someone I love when powerful people were hurting them, he said finally. Even though it was hard and complicated and cost me a lot. Was it worth it? He looked at his daughter, confident now, happy, no longer carrying the weight of his parents' cruelty. Yes, sweetheart. It was worth it. Melody nodded and went back to her project. Austin watched her write, her pencil moving confidently across the page, and felt a deep sense of peace. He'd set out to make one move that would unravel his parents' lives. In the end, he'd done much more than that. He'd protected his daughter, exposed injustice, and proved that actions have consequences. But most importantly, he'd taught Melody that she was valuable, that she deserved respect, and that someone would always fight for her. That lesson, more than anything else, was what made everything worthwhile. The recording pen sat in a drawer somewhere, and used. The financial documents were filed away. The emails from his parents, the angry ones, then the pleading ones, then the apologetic ones, all archived. The past was the past. Austin Cherry had won. Not because his parents went to prison or lost everything. He'd won because his daughter smiled easily now, because she knew her worth, because the trauma of that Christmas morning had been transformed into a lesson about justice and protection. He'd won because Melody was happy. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.